That's got to be first.
Yeah,
That's got to be in the Cory battle. That's first place, Zach.
If it's about that, it's about that. Yeah, that was good.
I have nothing to say about that. I really like the beat. I'm gonna let Cory talk to you about the harmony and the music in it because I can't speak on it. But
that was one of the best parts of it. It moved. It moved like songs that I like moved. You know, an A part and a B part, and then a big chorus. You know, it sounded like when it got to those major chords, it got to a big chorus. I was like, oh yeah, this is moving. And that with the drums, like the way that come together, and then the sample solo. Being a solo, I was like, all right. Like,
how do you feel about the runs and like the little solo part? Because to me, they sounded proper.
I liked it. Yeah.
They came for you with the chromaticism.
That's
what it was.
It made sense. It was like they used it as a solo, a scat solo. I was like, that was really I loved it. It was great.
Wow. Okay, Zach Bond, first place.
Taking a solo.
Solo for the W, Zach.
Scat solo.
Zach, we got one more beat left. I don't see them knocking you out of first place. That's first place, Zach. You went nutty.
I'm probably going to use some clickbait-ass title for this video because that seems to work well. What's up, y'all? My name is Zach Bond. I won the Cory Henry Kenny Beats Beat Battle Comp, and this is my beat breakdown video. I wanted this to be more about the musicality of what I did and less about the mixing. And the musical stuff I feel like is what y'all want to know about the most. All right, sick. Let's get into this beat. Basically, before I get into these beats, I just like to have intention with what I'm trying to do. I wanted the song to have a form. I wanted it to be ABAB or ABA. In this case, it could be ABA or ABC because the second A is a little bit different, so it could be a C. But the musicality is all the same. The chords are all the same. The beat's the same. I also just wanted to make sure I used all the sample because it's just important with these Kenny beat battles. I find it much more impressive when people can use the sample all the way, and it's so much more rewarding, especially knowing that you could probably do it with anything else after that. You know, I got a little lucky because obviously I'm performing for Cory Henry, and this has a giant steps lick in it, which is good. So I decided to use that, milk that a bit. Yeah, the rest of it is just I used good samples. That way I didn't have to mix too much of it. All the drum samples I used, pretty much all of them, are from the Noisy Fred pack. I highly recommend it. If you just look up Noisy Fred online, you should find them. I'll put the link in the description below as well. Everything on there is beautifully recorded, just well thought out. They already sound like really sick. You don't need really to add much to them. So yeah, I'll go into that a bit later. The sample chops. You get the point. Auto-tune on it because this kid is not singing in tune, and it's gonna help my beat if it's in tune, which you'd think would be common sense, but some of y'all don't tune your shit. Warped it in time, so that's it. After that, that's when I started adding the effects and chopping them up. So on the main takes I used for the track, just a little bit of stock reverb, this phaser flanger just to give it a little spread and movement, and then this frequency shifter to pitch down some of these last notes in the run. And that's all I have for the main giant steps lick. Down here at the end of the track, after I warped this sample, I just turned it into a MIDI track using the drum rack feature, and then I just chopped up certain parts that I liked. So they're just a couple like nice little jazz runs, and I also wanted them to sound a bit different from the first part of the sample, so all I did is I put this reverb, just same thing as the other one, soothe just to get rid of some of those harsh frequencies, and then Nectar has this harmony effect, which is great for just adding layers to stuff you don't have multiple recordings of. So since this is just one take, I unisoned left and the right, and then plus 12 on the top, and then OTT just to make the vocal a little more up front. But yeah, that's it. That's the whole sample chop. Moving on to the drums. So as I said before, I didn't EQ anything in this track except the kick here. I did, so I lied, my bad. But I just boosted this first kick sample around 45 hertz just because that's kind of where the kick pushes through the mix a bit. That way I don't have to sidechain too much. But yeah, I usually also don't layer two kicks, but in this case it sounded good. So in this case, So that one has some nice attack to it, and this one, same thing, but they're just, one of them's covering more of the high range, the other and the other one's a bit more low. So together, sounds full, sounds nice. Didn't end up clashing frequency wise. There wasn't any noise cancellation there, so that's good. I did the same thing with the snares. There's one that's more like a knock. This is more like a knock sound that's more spread out. That's just how the sample came, with a little bit of reverb on it. And then the second snare is just a nice attack snare. I just faded them a little bit. You can also do the same kind of effect with the fade that you can with the transients here, but sometimes the transients cuts off a little bit too much of the end of the sample, so the fade always works nicely. And then on this snare, this was just some nice little fill snares in this roll, just to give it more of like a real drum feel. I also love using drum rolls. If you guys don't use drum rolls, you should, because they're sick. And then I have 3 perks going on. This is just a ride. It goes through the intro. As you can see, I warped this one with some swing on it. And how I usually like to do the swing is I'll quantize it all at 16ths. And then, as you can see, I just move the middle. If it's a 16th note groove, I move the 2 and 4 a little bit ahead, so it gives it just more natural swing. And once I do all that, I consolidate it and I move the whole thing a bit forward. So on the metronome, it's always a bit ahead, and the second note's dragging, and the fourth. And when you hear this and the shaker together, they're warped in time together, so it's cleaner. With this, nothing on it, just the shaker sample, and I pitch it up too, just to make it a bit cleaner. Quick rundown of how I do the swing. With the kicks, I try to keep the first kick on the grid and the rest just a little bit ahead or behind, depending on how the feel is. I wanted this to be really bouncy, so as you can see, the first kick's on. This one's a bit ahead of the grid. This one's right ahead as well, just right in the center of those two. And that's it. That's the whole drum groove. So next we got the bass. Didn't really do much for this. For the effects, I just I have a sidechain on the end, a filter just to kind of filter it in at the beginning during this intro. I have this saturator, just because I think it makes it a bit more full without you needing to crank up the decibel level. I have this vinyl distortion, which is really great. It just adds like the perfect amount of distortion, I think, especially in this track. It sounded really nice. And that's it. The sample already has a bit of natural reverb in it. Yeah, and then I just kind of did this like really behind the beat, going up from the 5th, from the root 5 root, just kind of bump ba-dum, going up chromatically to the half step above it. As you can tell, it's super behind the beat, but that just adds to the swing of the track. The bass is such a staple. Moving on to the chords, I'm gonna do a chord breakdown. I'm gonna show you a little bit of some chord theory, how extensions work. I feel like would be a great topic to cover quickly in this video. Before I do that, I just want to show you the sound I used. This is from the Lophiile pack on Splice. If you don't know producer Lophiile, he's an amazing producer. He's one of my favorite producers, especially if you like R&B, hip-hop stuff. But yeah, he has this sample here. It's like a flute that already has some really nice effects on it. Since I'm not a big sound design guy, I really like to just find melody samples where there's one clear note and just put it on a simpler. I use this fade feature, so you got to make sure warp is off. Fade, I have it 100% in this case, and the loop is also where you want to adjust it to loop. That way you can get the beginning of the sample rather than using the start, because it cuts off the beginning or the end. And I just have it looping, so that way I can get some chords out of it. I just have RC20 to give it a little more kind of tape feel. EQ that I didn't use, and a sidechain. Anyway, let's get into some of this chord theory. It took me forever to learn theory. I still don't know really any theory, and I'm probably going to say some wrong shit in here. So just keep that in mind. The way extensions made sense to me when it was explained, the first time it just clicked, was when they explained it as a scale starting from the beginning. If you do 2 octaves of a scale, you can count all the way through 13, starting on C and go up to C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It goes through 15, but as you might know, chord extensions are only the 9th, the 11th, and the 13th. And so the reason that is because when you're playing a triad or a 7th chord, you're playing the root, the 3rd, in this case the major 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th would be B, right? So that's just a root position 7th chord. So once you go past the 7th, you hit the root again at the top. Once you get to D, that is the 9th, right? Because you're going from 1 through 10, and then 1 through 10 again, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. When you go to D, if I'm playing the 7th chord, I'm not playing the D in this chord, right? When I add that, that's now the 9th, or also the 2nd, which would be down here. So I guess that's just one way someone explained it to me, and it just made a lot of sense. And going off of that, you have the 13th and the 11th. So the 11th is also the 4th, and the 13th is also the 6th. So they're basically just notes in the scale that you aren't playing in the chord yet until you add them. And then that's what makes it those extensions. Also, another thing I didn't realize when I started is that an extension chord needs to be a 7th first, in this case. So if I'm playing a C major 7, if I'm playing a C major 7, and I want to make it C major 9, I gotta include that 7th and add the D to make it the 9 too, right? So that's it. I mean, that's like the most basic way I feel like I can explain it. I definitely want to do more theory videos, even though I'm not great at theory, but just kind of my process about it. I play mostly by ear. I'm not a technical person, so I usually don't think about chords in this way, but I think for some of you it's definitely going to help. Just going over the voicings I used in this song, B major 9. Right now I'm playing it in 3rd inversion. I'm not going to go over inversions in this video, but I'll do so some other point if y'all want to come see that. So the first chord is B major, the 2nd chord is D major 9. Same chord, just going up to D. 3rd is a G major 9. Right? And the last chord is F sharp minor 11. You might be wondering, Zach, I know how to play these chords, but only in root position. Well, there's ways to mess around with the way they're placed, and that's inversions. But this one's a really unique. I really like the way this one's voiced, and I'll just go through it really quickly. Start on the root of the chord you're playing, so I'll do C again. C is the root note on your bass. The 5th, you play the 5th on your left hand pointer finger. And then this might be a stretch, but use your thumb to play the 9th or the 2nd. So that way you're getting the 9 in there. And then you play your major 7 triad on top. It's just a beautiful voicing. It's so effective because you have this 2nd right here, and it adds a lot of tension there. So that's what I'm doing for all of these chords, really, other than playing some of them in 3rd inversion. So those sound beautiful, right? And those are literally all of the chords I'm playing in this song. They're all 9 chords and 11 chords. Every single one you just heard, and it sounds like I know what I'm doing. So that's the beauty of it. You don't really have to know a whole lot to make these chords sound really fantastic. Anyway, that's just my basic rundown of chord theory of extensions. And then lastly, the solo. Soloing is a hard one because it really is just a combination of knowing your scales and just doing it a hell of a lot. The reason why I know how to play my scales is because in high school I played lots of jazz standards. I was in the jazz band, and a lot of weeks for an assignment we had to transcribe jazz solos by ear. That's why I know all these licks, is because I would either take a jazz solo off of YouTube, I would just do a YouTube rip, put it in Ableton, stretch it out, or slow down the tempo and change the wave to complex or complex pro, so I don't get any weird choppiness in the sample. I would just try to play the solo exactly like it. I did it like every week for like 4 years of my life. So if you want to learn how to play more jazz solos and stuff, I really recommend doing that. It's really helpful just for improvisation overall. And obviously a lot of these jazz solos are kind of crazy, like this lick I play in the track. Right, so that's just a lick I learned, as Kenny said.
Very chromaticism.
But you can also just stick to the blues scale. Right, so like, you know, the more you mess around on these scales, the better you're gonna be able to play them. Just briefly going over how I did this sound, I did the same thing with the chord sample. I just took one bit of the sample Kenny gave us, I unwarped it, and I did the fade and changed the loop time, so I just get this one note. And then on control, I just turned on glide and kept it at the default, which usually starts at 50 milliseconds. Add a little of this chorus ensemble to spread it out, just a teeny bit of reverb. Here I have this reverb at the middle of the solo where this note kind of rings out. It just kind of added a more uplifting vibe halfway through the chorus. If the chorus is meant to be the main part of the song and the main energy, I think that really added to it nicely. All right, so the last part of this beat is the master chain. Do not just throw this shit on your master and expect it to work. It's not always gonna work. Just be careful when you're putting shit on your master. But in this case, it just needed to sound clean and ready to go for the beat battle. So the first thing I had on my master is this Ableton preset master chain I made. Basically, it's just a bunch of these, you know, I got saturator, EQ3, multiband, and none of them are actually doing anything except just being on. And it just kind of fills out the track a lot. With this glue compressor at the end, it also kind of acts as a limiter, which is nice to kind of control everything. With it off, it sounds like this. With it on, it sounds like this. So as you can see, it's pushing pretty hard, and it's not clipping, so that's good. I don't hear any distortion. Just got to be careful of that. And I have auto pan here just to give it movement. Sometimes it needs it, sometimes not. In this case, I didn't like it, so I turned it off. Moving on to the next plugin on the chain, Neutron 3. So it sounds really nice, it sounds clean, it sounds a bit louder, but it's still a bit dark. So I just wanted to crispy it up a bit, lighten up the mix. If you go down to mix bus and click on all-purpose mix bus, it gives you this EQ with a bit of a low cut and a bit of a high boost at the top, and then this sculptor. Without it, with it, so a huge difference, especially in the high ends. In fact, it actually might even be too crispy now. So all I'm gonna do is I go in here, turn this down to about 40, 44, 40%. Between that and what I did is I turned the tone down to about 10. And that seemed to keep it at a nice comfortable amount for crispiness, not too much high. It doesn't hurt your ears too much. And the cherry on top, the ear candy, is I have this Isotope Ozone. I just used the preset and I clicked add here, and I added this low end focus on this side here. So I just bring it up to about like 40%, and that's it. I didn't do anything else, and this just kind of gave it that clip sound. It sounds like it's clipping, but it's not. So without it, and with it, yeah, that's it. That's the whole chain. All right, guys, so that concludes my beat breakdown video. Thanks so much for sticking with me. I know it was super long, and the audio quality was a bit shit, but I'm just trying to get better. I want to be more precise and not talk so damn much. Anyway, thanks to Kenny for having these battles. It means a lot to us young producers. And shout out to Cory Henry. Shit's like a dream come true. Huge shout out to like Dystorpian and Alicia and Harry and all of them, like, for supporting everyone in the community. You know, they've been supporting me for the very short time I've been part of it and streaming and all that. So we should all feel really lucky to have them. The other contestants, like Felix, like, killed it. Definitely probably should have won, but yeah. So thanks again. I'll link all my socials below. I usually stream on Twitch more than anything else. I don't really post on YouTube too much or anything, but I'd love to see some of you guys there, and I appreciate all the love. So thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.
Zach, this is the biggest W. You about to get the Cory collab that you can never use ever, and it's gonna sound terrible through my mic, but you get in the collab right now.